In a prior video, I explained that Judge Cannon's attempt to help out the Orange Menace was unlikely to prove effective, mostly because his chart says so. And when your chart says so, then it really doesn't matter what you try to do. However, this is something Trump has done his whole life. He is very, very good at using lawyers to stall and delay, which can be especially effective when you are dealing with contractors, for that matter, enemies, anybody whom you can outspend. Because in keeping the legal matter going and forcing the other side to spend money, you can win outright doing that. In this case, however, he's essentially taking on the government itself, the entire US government, which can never produce a victory in the longer term, but in the shorter term, it's buying him time. And the fact that she appointed a special master is one such example. This despite the opinion of almost all legal experts that what she did, even in doing that, was quite amateurish and quite a stain on her reputation. I had surmised perhaps this woman might have been worried about the MAGA crowd. If she didn't help Trump out, perhaps they would threaten her family or threaten her, or who knows. So perhaps she was doing it for that reason. The way she's carrying on now, where she appears to be continuing to try to help Trump by, number one, telling the special master that contrary to his request of the Trump lawyers that they should present evidence of whatever they allege happened with such things as the FBI planting evidence. This is one of Trump's favorite tricks, to just cast aspersions without merit. And Judge Dearie, whom, by the way, he chose, but he chose someone who's obviously a serious jurist. Judge Dearie is saying to Trump and his team, if you have evidence that something was planted illegally, then present it. But see, they don't want to do that. Trump's game is always to say things publicly, to get his supporters to follow him, to get his supporters on board. It's not to actually argue it in court. If he argues it in court, or his lawyers argue it in court, it would lead to disaster. Matter of fact, they can't argue it in court because they don't have the evidence. This is the same thing that happened following the 2020 election, if you remember. He would say all kinds of things publicly, but whenever they went to court, nothing like that was said. Indeed, his ex-lawyer, Giuliani, Mad Rudy, he was heard to say more than once to judges, "No, Your Honor, we're not alleging fraud," when in fact he was alleging fraud 5 minutes before that on a megaphone in public, and he would leave the court and allege fraud again. This is obviously something that one wishes would be changed in our legal system, because it's extremely disturbing to see people like Trump, Giuliani, and many others of their ilk make claims in public that they know they could never defend in a court of law. Right? And in a sense here, Judge Cannon is assisting Trump in delaying. Basically, that's what it is, because in saying you don't have to present evidence, avoids the embarrassment, and so therefore Trump won't be shown for what he is sooner rather than later. She also extended the time during which the special master is working, such that they could take it into December. Again, delay tactics. None of this is going to save Trump, but it pushes the effect a little bit down the road. And as for her chart, what you notice is there's a lot of action, but most of the action is concentrated around the period that we're in, as in fall of 2022 and into the spring of 23. Because the key here is to notice the Saturn, the transiting Saturn up here, squaring the sun, which it effectively is doing from June all the way until the spring of 23, for about 8 months. Most intensely, it was in June, and then it'll go through there again in the spring. But essentially, we're there, and the same thing is happening with the Pluto transit, because Pluto is squaring itself very directly, as well as Jupiter. And then you've got Neptune squaring itself to add even more fuel. And there's a decent possibility this moon could be dragged into the Saturn action as well, because Saturn is stationing at 19 degrees as we move into the latter part of this month. So my sense of this woman is she's going to be a feature, an add-on, a helper. She's going to be on the scene, so to speak, at most until the spring. I would be incredibly surprised if she were a factor beyond that. But in the near term, She's a bit of a Trump ally, and all she's doing is delay, bring about a certain amount of delay, and with the caveat that because she has Saturn at 17 degrees Libra, it ends up being conjunct Trump's Jupiter. And her Neptune at 23 Sagittarius is near his moon, but it opposes the sun. This is the signature of someone whose actions in attempting to help you may end up harming you in some way. That is, of course, something that is yet to be seen. We will see. But I would not be one bit surprised if what she's doing, thinking that it's helping him in some way, ends up being an even bigger problem.